How's it going, everybody? It's Maniac4Bricks, and as many of you know, for many years, I've been a huge Bionicle fan. And I think there was almost the entirety of 2015 and 16 that I had been constantly talking about Bionicle on the channel. But even outside of that, I've still been keeping up with it and trying to adapt more to the community in the recent years. And one of the things I had done was get back into some mock building. So in 2017, I had officially canceled a mock I'd been working on for several months to almost a year at that point, the Bionicle Mask Wall project. If you want to see what it looked like back then, you can check it links in the description below for some of the parts of different sections of it. Basically, it was a way of collecting many of the Bionicle masks since 2001 up to 2016. I was not going for a whole collection, but I at least wanted to give a vibe of what it would look like with them all having a decent, consistent display space. And I had actually gone back to that recently, sorting out a bunch of the pieces and kind of building another version of it, but I have no idea if it's going to go anywhere. I've only done a photo or two so far, but we have to wait and see what happens from that. So after that point, when the mock was demolished at Brick Fair, Virginia 2017, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I knew some of these masks were more than I could handle. There were still plenty of gaps in between I wasn't sure I was going to complete. And there were some completely rare and exclusive ones that there was very little to almost zero chance of obtaining, especially some that are one-of-one copies. So I wasn't aiming to get every single one of them, but at least have the availability of space, what that would look like. So, and that also included things such as the Crata, these slug-like rubbery ones that I know Brixar has been hunting down recently. And there's also the rubbery, plasticky Crata. No, Crata. What kind of Bionicle fan am I? Getting back into it. Anywho, so one thing I had thought about for a while was sorting out those masks, putting them into my collection, maybe using them for mocks sometime down the road. I had actually used one or two of them for a self mock at some time. But one thing that actually came back in my mind was this promotion, a Lego Bionicle Velcro bag from 2001. This is item number 16073. It was a ToysRUs exclusive, and I've tried to research it. I can't find any proper information as to how it actually was released. And I had this since 2001. This is my original copy, but I don't remember how I got it. I don't know if it was a gift with purchase sort of thing, or if it was a certain event that happened and you could get this exclusively. I have no idea. But I do remember having this since back in the day. I've been a fan of Bionicle in 2001. And what I've done recently on live stream on this channel is I tried to categorize it. And I realized there was a big problem with it. It really does have a nice layout, and it does fit many of the early Bionicle masks. That's what I was trying to go for here, was if it was made during that time, it's probably made to accommodate these, so I will stick with those shapes. There are 73 compartments throughout this 3-page tri-folded binder per se that can hold all of these masks. And there's actually a whole lot of paper inserts that originally came with it. You can see some of them down in the corner here that were supposed to be in every one of these. So that way it gave you an idea of what was missing in between, what colors were available, and what styles were available of these masks. So I had actually modified it from that, where I included some other ones that were the same shape, but maybe released a little later, just in a different color than originally available. The problem with this is that there are 73 compartments, a very odd number and a very weird number for Bionicle. Any iteration of masks and colors are usually done in groups of 6s or 8s. And there are some exceptions to that in between. It definitely depends on things that are promotional, like this transparent green, or trans neon green mask. As I mentioned before, some of the ones on this side are actually just happen to work that way for here because they have groups of 7 on most of these rows, and then up here 2 rows of 6, most of this was 7s, and then down here back again to 6s. Including the gold and the silver masks was actually from 2002, but again, it was the same shape and just a different color that I thought would fit nicely with everything else. So the problem with this is that at that time, they didn't really have a lot of that lining up. And I don't know if there is a file out there. It would be great to see like a new copy or a very well kept copy with all the paper inserts, because I'm actually curious what the original order was supposed to be for all these masks. from what I can gather from the papers that I had left, because I had many of them scattered about over time, they just, fell out of place, unfortunately. From what I've gathered, it's not only about the original Toa masks, these Kanohi that you see here, that would line up to about, 6 rows or so. It was also about the Turaga masks. So, ones that were released along with the Toa and also had their own colors to them. There were about 36 of them at that time, just like there was with the Toa. And 36 and 36, if you realize, that only makes 72. What's the 73rd? Was it supposed to be a special edition mask? Was it a copper mask? What was it? I honestly have no idea what they intended at that time. And even so, this is a bit difficult to manage. I had a bit of trouble with some of these masks based on their shape of actually fitting them inside of the containers. Because these are very thin and really, folded up. Maybe it just had a little bit of work just to get them out from something not really used much, but it still was not easy to fit these inside of here, especially with Kopaka's mask via Cow Cow. These were very hard to fit in straightforward, especially with the eyepiece sticking out. So the best way I've been able to do it was some of them were forward or kind of slightly angled. Then some I had a better chance of fitting downward. So that's how that turned out. Not much was difficult beyond that, except maybe the Picari, because of its width. It's more wide than some of the other masks. Yeah, it varied. But I also find this to be a trouble even afterwards. Even if you weren't a fan of these particular masks, or if you wanted to add another layer of things in here, how would the rest of them work? Because if you look at something like the Nuva masks, the ones coming in the next wave after the Toa, they're much bigger than the original ones. Here's the Miru, and then here's the Miru Nuva, the one that's supposed to follow after it. And you can see that there are more spikes and more width to the sides of the masks. Not only that, but also more depth to it. Actually, Miru has a little bit more depth on the top, but it's more widespread on the top of this. Another offender of that would be, I'm going to forget the name though, but it's Pohatu's mask. Correct me in the comments, do whatever you can. I don't know everything Bionicle, just a lot of different little things. So that's pretty big. That basically triumphs over it. And put them side by side this way, you can see how much bigger and wider the Nuva form of the mask is compared to the original. That doesn't really work either. Now, if we look back at our old friend Kopaka, and like I said, this was the one that had the most trouble with me, this mask, again, in Nuva form, is much bigger. It maybe not as... Yeah, there we go. So they did decrease the eyepiece a bit. It's a little bit more recessed than the original one was. But even so, that's a lot more space around it. It gives a lot more squarish look instead of the circular look that it originally came with. I mean, I can almost fit it inside of there. That's how much bigger it's gotten. So in general, the Nuva masks are much bigger and are not going to fit in here very comfortably. So how is that supposed to work? And I know mathematically, I said before that 36 and 36 equals 72 out of the 73 slots. How would that fit consistently? How would that fit in a proper order between these? A lot of these have 7s in their rows. So what would fill in the 7th spot? And I'm not talking 7th Toa either. Would the Turaga just have their own row side or something? How was that first arranged? I basically have to get a new one a new copy almost unopened, or just really kept in good condition to figure that out. Because just looking back on this, I can't figure out what was the intent. There was no instruction manual that I recall that showed where everything was supposed to go. They just had a large paper sheet or so that you would punch out each of these little squares and then stick them into their places so you'd have, a placeholder. So this is what I've done so far with the original Bionicle masks for different colors. I've added in a couple other colors afterwards just because the spot was there. And some colors actually did line up with each other. I thought that was fair. And just to give a little bit more of the recolors of them. But still, I don't think this is a good system. It's, it's okay, but it definitely ages poorly. it does not work out very well for organizing Bionicle masks. And don't even get me started on the other kinds of things, like the Krata and the Krana. Again, a lot of those are done in groups of either 6 or 8. The Krana especially in groups of 8, like different types of them. And then Krata, I believe, is in groups of 6. So that's not going to fairly fit inside of here, like organized, even though they're much smaller and more rubbery, so they'll be able to, they'll have better flex inside of there. Then you have things like the Metru masks and anything beyond that from the early years of Bionicle. So that didn't really help as well because, again, when you have those as new heads, they are bigger heads, they are wider heads, and therefore it gets much more exaggerated for all their features. I don't even want to bring them out because I know that 9 times out of 10, they're not going to work. I had thought about using Bionicle G2 masks, but because of the little ridges that are in the back of most of the masks, I actually have one here to demonstrate from one of the Skull Spiders. They have these little ridges in the back of the masks in order to attach onto the face. And I figure with that kind of distance, that may be a problem with fitting them inside of here because it would be too far back compared to the rest of it. But if I pair it next to a mirror, it may not be as bad as it looks. It seems like that might actually work. I don't think there are actually 73 masks, even including the San Diego Comic-Con ones or any other exclusive released ones. I think it's closer to like 50 or something, but potentially that could work. I'll actually try it right now on video to see about this one. It's not the widest of them, but at least it's one I have readily available that I could test out. So if I open this back up, I'm going to try to squeeze it in through the top portion. And there we go. It's fitting right there. So it's appropriately the right height for this one in particular. And there are several of them in this color, so that actually works well. But again, I can't really speak for all of the G2 masks if they're all going to work that way. Especially when you have odd ones like from 2016. They get much larger and debatably more complicated because of things like the villains in that series. So I'm not sure if those count as masks, and I'm not sure if that would fit in here very well. So I'm happy with what I've done so far and already covered on live stream, and being able to review this, obscure Bionicle promotional product. I've only seen a handful of videos of them on YouTube beforehand, but nothing that was like a complete layout of everything. And I'm not saying this is complete. It's not. You clearly can see there's plenty of open gaps because I couldn't figure out what to fill in. But as it is, I tried. And I thought maybe this will help out for anyone else that's a Bionicle fan, may have found this at some point for less than $10 and tried to figure out what masks can fit inside of here. Maybe I can experiment with it further with the G2 masks and see how it turns out. So thank you for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time with more LEGO videos. I guarantee there will be more Bionicle videos on the channel. I have no idea when you're going to see what content. So just stick around, subscribe, ring the bell, all that stuff you do with the other channels, follow it up here. And I'll see you next time with more LEGO videos.